I am one of those people that others affectionately call a baby person. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like, I wanted kids when I was a kid. I'm like 6 years old, and we're at, a family gathering, and I've got the youngest cousin, and I'm like, no, I'm fine. I got her, I'm fine, right? I learned really young that if you want to move yourself up on the totem pole of who gets to hold the baby, offer to change diapers. No one wants to change diapers, so I offer, and then I get moved up to the list, even though I'm like a 13-year-old awkward person, and all the adults are like, oh, baby, I get to hold the baby, right? So I'm a baby person, and I've wanted kids of my own since I was really young, and this past year, I got to experience my first birth, but it wasn't my birth from me. It was actually the birth of my fake grandchild. Back in college, I'm a senior in college, I became the legal guardian of a behaviorally challenged 15-year-old. We lived together in a condominium. I had been her nanny, and then her mother was going to give her up to the state, and I said, no, I will take care of her. So that's another story called The Time I Became the Legal Guardian of a Behaviorally Challenged 15-year-old. That's for another day. Mandy grows up, and she is 23 now, and so this is about a year and a half ago, she calls and she tells me she's pregnant. And I'm like, right, oh my gosh. The man who, everyone's like, oh, is it a good situation? No. She got pregnant by an initial. His name is G. So I, as her fake mother, do the appropriate, like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to be there for you. So I am, at the time, she's living in the suburbs of Chicago, and I am living up in Fargo, North Dakota. And so I said, this past February, so I said, I'm going to be there for the birth. I'm going to be there. Now, Mandy has an attachment disorder, so Mandy never believes anything. So you're like, I'm going to be there. And when the nurse was talking to us, I said, tell the nurse when you actually believed I would be there. And she looks at the nurse. She goes, when she walked into the room. I said, even though I called you all the way down, right? And she's like, yeah. So I said, no, I'm going to be. And I tell her 1,000 times, I love you. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there for the birth, right? So I get the call, and it works out with my spring break, and I'm driving, right? It's a 9-hour drive, so I drive literally straight to the hospital. I drive straight to the hospital, 9 hours, get a speeding ticket, whatever. I got to be there for my fake grandchild. So I get to the hospital, and the doctor who's coming, and I'm, rushing in, and the doctor comes in, and she goes, hi, you must be Megan. This baby is waiting for you. I said, oh, good, okay. So if it had been a natural childbirth, we all would have got to be in the room, as Eve Ensler says. And thank you, Vagina Monologues, thank you. And go read the Vagina Monologues, please. Okay. But it wasn't. There were complications, and it had to be a C-section. So I'm on one side of the bed. Mandy is very large, and she's very pregnant. She's laying in bed, and she's on all these drugs, and she's making noises like, and Jody, her mother, who's a tiny, tiny woman, who's her adopted mother because she was adopted from Romania, another long story, she's on the other side of the bed, and so the nurse comes in and she says, you can pick one person to be in the operating room with you. And Mandy looks at Jody and looks at me and she goes, she says, I'm not going to decide. And Jody, who's a very nice woman but very unemotional, has no desire to be in an operating room, and I know this, but I can't be like, I'm going to be the one to watch a baby be born because that's the best thing ever, and this is my fake child, so hello. I don't say any of that. I say, because I'm from southern Wisconsin, from the Midwest, so I do the whole, well, what would you like, and Jody was like, what would you like to be in the room? And I said, yes, I would. And Mandy goes, and I go, is that okay? We can have Jody if you want, She says, no, it's fine, whatever you guys decide. So they take her in, and then a nurse comes in, and they hand me all of these blue items. So I get a blue cap and blue booties, and I get this whole thing, and they're like, we'll come and get you. I'm like, okay, I got my camera, right? It's like a, nice zoom lens, I'm ready. So they take me into the room, and as we're walking down the hall, they say, okay, don't touch anything blue. That's sterile. I said, okay. We walk in, everything is blue. And I go, I'm not good in social situations. I'm not careful. So I'm like, okay, don't screw up, don't screw up. So they find me this little tiny brown chair, and I get to sit in it because it's not blue. And so I'm sitting in it, and Mandy's like Jesus on the table, right? So she's here. And I'm holding her hand, and she's like, you know. And for those of you that don't know this, it smells because they're cauterizing her. So it smells like burning. This is not a story for the weak-souled or stomached, but be brave. It's got a good ending. Okay, so I'm holding her hand, and there's the wall. There's this blue wall. And I'm not touching it, but I learn that if I over the wall, I can see what's going on. Now, no one wants to see a C-section besides the small group of people who are baby people. So I'm watching, and I'm enthralled. I'm a researcher. I'm a writer. I've researched about birth. I've written about birth, and I'm like, whoa. So I'm watching, and they're like grabbing her and shifting, and she's like, what's going on? I'm like, never mind. It's fine. Everything's fine. So I'm watching, and they're doing all this. They've got these ring things, and they're doing all this stuff, and she's like, is it okay? I'm like, yeah, it's fine. So we're watching, and they pull this thing out of her. Now, I've heard of afterbirth. I know what afterbirth is, but I'd never heard of this thing that comes out of you. I thought that is a funny thing to come out of a woman before they're about to have a baby. Oh my God, that's the baby. No, they turn it, it's got a face, and it's like, and I was like, oh my God. And I'm not thinking, right? I'm like, mental diarrhea, babe, that's the baby. And she goes, that's a baby? Why is it not crying? I don't know. They don't look worried. Oh, it's crying. Okay, so it's crying. Now, here's the part you may not know unless you've seen a child be born. When children are born, they are not human. They are alien. They come out, they are screaming monsters. They're like, wah, wah, not like a screaming baby, like a screaming monster. And so they're wrapping it. He's got no idea what's going on, okay? He's wide-eyed. He's like crazy purple, olive colored. So they wrap him up. They went out. They're like, do you want to come over and take pictures? And Mandy's kind of like, don't leave. So we'll stay a little while. And then she goes, okay, go take his picture. So I'm like, okay. So I go take his picture. And then they go, do you want to hold him? Do I want to hold him? So they bring me back over. I sit down. It's this big moment. They're handing me the baby. And he's still crazy, right? And as they're handing me him, Mandy's going, where is he? Where's my baby? Where are you, baby? And he hears her voice. And he turns human. It was unbelievable. I've always wanted children. One day I might have children. But I will never forget the first time I saw my fake grandchild be born.